This is a Dynamite Network podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And in this episode, continuing Spooky October, aka Spooktober, Jonathan and I are coming at you with another Halloween-inspired episode. Last week, we reviewed Blade Trinity, and before that, we pit the characters of Andrew Bennett and Dracula against each other. For this episode, it's going to be a demon duel. We're going to find out who's going to win in a fight between Trigon and Dormammu. This is a big one. They are vastly powerful, interdimensional, demonic entities, and the duel is just going to be insane.
Yeah, these definitely aren't like your typical demons. This isn't Estergard versus Ghost Rider here. These are like the big daddy demons, essentially the devil.
Well, not so much for Marvel, but we're going to get into this big daddy demon duel later on this episode. Before that, we're going to break down the latest comic book movie news that came out this past week, including all the drama surrounding the Aquaman 2 production, as well as all the drama surrounding the Daredevil Born Again series production.
A lot of drama. Yeah. We got big daddy demon duels and a lot of mama drama going on.
As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic.
As our listeners may know, our duel simulator is so advanced that it's gained sentience and has named itself the artificial life form for running extensive duels, just a rather very intelligent simulator, 9000, or Alfred Jarvis 9000. He has a quick message for our listeners, so listen up.
Why, hello there. Do you love listening and chatting about Marvel and DC? Then become a part of the Dynamic Duel community on Patreon, where you can choose from 3 tiers. The Dynamic 2.0 tier lets you listen to this podcast without ads and gives you access to its Discord chat group, where you can chat with Johnny DC and Marvelous Joe. The Fantastic 4 tier gives you that and more with 2 bonus episodes each month, including bloopers and top 10 shows where Johnny and Joe count down your favourite Marvel and DC subjects. The X-Force tier makes you an executive producer of Dynamic Duel, where every month you help the host choose what to review and who to fight against each other. And finally, the Dynamite Podcast Network tier allows aspiring podcasters to create their own battle-focused show using this Monte Carlo simulator. Johnny and Joe will help you develop your show, provide graphic support and consultation, and get you simulation results to announce on your show. Pitch the twins your show via email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by reaching out to them on social media. Check it out at patreon.com/dynamicduel. Pip pip cheerio.
Thanks, AJ9K, and thanks to everyone who supports the podcast.
Be sure to tune in to the Max Destruction podcast, which is part of the Dynamite Podcast Network, this Wednesday, where this whole month Ken is going to pit some of the spookiest characters from film against each other, including Pinhead versus Pennywise, Candyman versus Leatherface, and Predator versus the Alien Queen.
Yeah, last week I guested it on his podcast where we found out who'd win in a fight between Jason versus Michael Myers.
Definitely check that episode out. Also tune into Sinjo World this Thursday to find out who would win in a fight between Dio Brando from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and Denji from Chainsaw Man. The host Zach also has these spooky characters being put up against each other this month.
Visit dynamicpodcast.com or click the link in our show notes to listen to all the shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network. But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize. A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on Instagram and in our email newsletter for the person that we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Last week we asked, what Marvel or DC character that has not headlined their own video game do you want to see get a solo game? We got so many fantastic answers for this. In the end, there were just too many great ideas, and what we had to do was nail down the great ideas that went into more specifics regarding the gameplay.
Right. There are a lot of characters that I think would make for great open world games like Batman Arkham City or the Spider-Man game. So we had to prioritize answers with more definitive gameplay aspects.
Yeah, let's go ahead and run down the honorable mentions as well as the no prize winner. Our first honorable mention goes to Matt Lamb, who said,
Hey guys, it's Matt Lamb here. See, I'll definitely ask this question a while back, and I'll give the same answer, just with some new details. I'd love to see a Nightcrawler video game, and I'd love to see it as an amalgam between Assassin's Creed and a game called Origami. It was a stealth game where you play as a ninja wraith with shadow powers. I personally love stealth games, especially given the opportunity to try and ghost a level without killing a guard or being seen. And I'd love to see a game like that with Nightcrawler.
yeah, we may have asked this question before. I know recently we did ask what your guys' thoughts were regarding a Marvel versus DC video game, and somebody gave a Nightcrawler answer for that, which we didn't give an honorable mention. But for this question, a Nightcrawler video game in the vein of Assassin's Creed sounds totally awesome.
Yeah, I love stealth games like Metal Gear, like Splinter Cell. I think that style of game would be perfect for Nightcrawler, who, could totally stab some fools in the shadows and, isn't like insanely over the top powerful with like body armor and stuff, that he wouldn't be invulnerable in this game and would make it a challenge.
Right. And, he's really good at hiding in the shadows due to the nature of his blue colored fur. So you could have Nightcrawler hide in the shadows up on the ceilings and walls and stuff like that, and then teleport where he needs to go to. I think it would be a whole lot of fun just trying to stay undetected.
Oh, it's so cool. I want it now.
Yeah, great idea.
Our next honorable mention goes to John Speas, who said,
Hey fellas, it's John Speas. So I have this idea. It's like it could be 3 titles, but it's basically one game. So let's combine like the old Myst game with like Portals and Arkham and create like a crime solving puzzle action game. And if you want it for kids, it can be Detective Chimp. If you want it for teens, it can be The Question. And if you want it for like adults, it could be Rorschach.
I love this idea. I totally remember the old, like, almost escape room type video games like Myst, where you just point and click on different elements within a room. I would love to see this as a Detective Chimp game personally, and not just for kids. Like, I would totally play that as an adult, because Detective Chimp is dope.
Yeah, he could deal with some quite mature themes as a member of Justice League Dark, right?
For sure.
Yeah, just like Cower the Duck, which is probably why we pit those two against each other in a Christmas duel that we did a few years back. But no, I think that's a fantastic idea. Like combining the investigative elements of a game like Myst with the puzzle solving aspects of a game like Portal. I think that's a winning recipe and a whole lot of fun when you incorporate like superhero themes, especially with a character as fun as Detective Chimp.
Yeah, 100%. I could see this as a mobile game too. It would just be awesome. I would love to play it.
Yeah, I'd play the shit out of it.
Great answer, John. Make sure to listen to his podcast, The Blast from Our Past podcast, with his brother Adam.
Yeah, they're great friends of the show. Love those guys.
Our final honorable mention goes to Colby Henches, who said,
Hey boys, Colby Henches. The video game I want to see would be She-Hulk, Ace Attorney. It would look and play just like the Phoenix Wright games. Capcom can even make it. You do some cases as Jen Walters, some cases as She-Hulk. Unlock bonus cases you can do as Matt Murdock. But in a very Harvey Birdman way, all the cases will be defending superheroes against ridiculous claims. I think it'd be fun.
Now, I've never actually played the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney video games, but I've heard a lot about them over the years, and I've always been interested in checking them out. I know, there's a lot of famous elements from them, like the objection cutscene and everything like that. With the little knowledge that I do know about the gameplay and how fun these games look, basically it's the only like lawyer video game out there, right? But I think applying that to the superhero lawyers like She-Hulk or Matt Murdock, Daredevil, is a fantastic idea. It definitely suits She-Hulk a little bit better because part of the appeal of her courtroom stories is how kind of outlandish they get with the superhero community involved. And I think it would be really cool to, go over the evidence and then see how it contradicts the witness statements, then drill them on the inconsistencies to try to get my client declared not guilty.
Sounds really interesting. I did not know this game existed, but I love unique games like that. I think if you had some quick action scenes with She-Hulk where she had to punch someone who leapt over the witness stand or something like that, would be awesome.
That would be interesting. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney is one of the gems in Capcom's game library. So great answer, Colby Henches. We also want to give a shout out to Andrew Shunk, Christopher Minotti, Nate Mantaneo, Scott Camacho, Travis Herndon, and Unworthy Collector from Instagram and YouTube for all going to our website and leaving your answer.
But the winner of this week's No Prize is Rick McGrew, who said,
For video games, I think for DC, Blue Beetle would be really cool because you can play it as he just gets the Scarab, and the way you unlock is him learning the new abilities that the Scarab's able to do.
So one of my favorite video games of all time has to be the Metroid Prime series. The graphics, the gameplay, the puzzle element that it had was just so enjoyable to play. And I think it would translate really well into a Blue Beetle game where, like Rick said, the more control he gains over the Scarab that's attached to him, the more abilities he unlocks, which allows him to explore previously locked areas of the gameplay map.
Yeah, and also allows him to defeat previously undefeatable villains using his new abilities. I think that's a great idea. I think a Blue Beetle game in the vein of Metroid Prime is a fantastic idea. There's just so much potential there.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be a first-person shooter. Like, you make that third person, you could also add like a combat mechanic to it, which would be really cool with like all the different arms that come from his back and stuff, and blades that he could make. It would be amazing. Like, the character of Blue Beetle was made for a video game. Come on, Warner Brothers. I know that you and Disney are fleshing out your video game divisions. Our listeners have given you 2 badass games each that you should totally run with because they sound amazing.
Absolutely. I would play the heck out of all of these, and I'm not even a gamer, barely. They just sound like a lot of fun.
Just take my money. Take it.
So congrats to Rick McGrew for winning this week's No Prize. Guys, go check out his podcast called the Retronomapod. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news. Okay, so there's been a lot of drama surrounding Aquaman 2, and this past week, it turns out that basically all of the rumors we've been hearing are true. Some users on Reddit all banded together and they paid the court fees to get therapy notes from Amber Heard's therapy sessions released. And they leaked them online, and all of this shit about Aquaman 2 came to the surface, including the fact that, according to Amber Heard, Jason Momoa wanted her fired from set, didn't like her, and basically the same with James Wan, because he felt that anytime he posted anything about Aquaman 2, fans were just riled up by the fact that she was in the movie. So it just created a very toxic environment on social media for any promotion regarding the film. So both Jason Momoa and James Wan reportedly wanted to get her replaced in the role, which Warner Brothers was ready to do until Amber Heard's boyfriend at the time, Elon Musk, threatened to sue the studio. And since, he's the richest man in the world, they took the threat seriously.
I just think that's all hilarious. I think it was largely displayed during the trial against Johnny Depp that she does have somewhat of a victim complex. So when she stated things like Jason Momoa dressed up like Johnny Depp in order to tease her,
right?
That made me laugh out loud because Jason Momoa's representatives went to his defense saying that's how Jason Momoa dresses. He wears a lot of rings, a lot of necklaces. He dresses in this very bohemian style, similar to Johnny Depp, but of course she would not really see it that way, right?
Right. Variety also released information saying that Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, Ezra Miller, and Jason Momoa would not be returning to their same roles in the DCU, though they did say that Jason Momoa is in talks to return as Lobo, potentially in the Superman Legacy movie, which was really interesting. I didn't think it would happen that soon.
I don't think any of that was a surprise except for maybe Gal Gadot. I did think that maybe she would hold on to her role as Wonder Woman in the new universe, but to get it confirmed that she won't be, and then there was no follow-up statement from Gal Gadot's reps, makes me think that all the drama regarding her is over.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's not to say that she couldn't come back to a role in the DCU, sort of like Jason Momoa, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be as Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
They also did mention in the article the potential for Universal to perhaps buy Warner Brothers and therefore DC in the future. So no matter what they do going forward, they need to make it work, whether it's under Warner Brothers, whether it's under Universal, as it's a big selling point for Warner Brothers.
I think Disney should just buy them. And then we finally get that Marvel vs. DC movie. Like, why Universal? I guess Universal is in need of the IP.
Disney could buy Warner Brothers over my cold, dead body.
You alone? will
Yes.
defend the
Yes.
purchase.
If I have to.
It's interesting how Disney might be acquired by Apple.
Oh, yeah. And then you would have Apple versus, I don't want to say Universal. It's NBC Universal, which is owned by Comcast. So really Apple versus Comcast, two tech companies.
Yeah, that's weird.
One company makes the products that you surf on the other company's internet with.
We'll see how everything shakes down with Marvel and DC business-wise in the coming years.
Yeah, the NBC Universal thing we may learn about as soon as next year. And I just kind of want this whole thing to be done with. So if we're going to sell, just sell. I think it could work out. Maybe we'll make some, Universal Monster comics or something like that. That'd be dope.
By we, you mean DC and not you at all.
When I say I really mean DC.
In Marvel news, which I won't refer to Marvel in the first person because I'm not delusional. We learned this past week, this is crazy news. The Daredevil Born Again series is being overhauled in a significant creative reboot. Basically, when the writers and actor strikes are going on, Marvel executives were able to review the footage that they had already shot for the Daredevil Born Again series. About less than half of the series was shot. And they looked at it and said, wow, this is not working. So they let go of the head writers, Chris Ord and Matt Corman, released the directors, and are basically hiring an entirely new writing and directorial team and a new showrunner. And basically overriding their entire process, not just for this show, but for their television series in general.
Which I think is great. I think that's fantastic news.
This is both horrible and fantastic news. So the horrible news is that the Daredevil television show is likely going to be delayed indefinitely until they hire a showrunner, new writers, and new directors, and then get this thing filmed, produced, and out there on the streaming platform. They're basically starting from ground zero with the show, except for the cast. The good news about this is that Marvel has realized that their method of making television series, which is in line with their movie production process, where basically Marvel was treating these television series as 8-hour-long films, given massive budgets, and then they would review it and then basically fix what they needed to with reshoots and post-production, special effects and stuff like that. That is the Marvel method to making movies, which is not always successful, might I add, and I do think they need to rethink that as well. But the process definitely doesn't work for television series that are long-form storytelling. There's a lot more story that could go wrong within the course of 6 to 8 episodes. And there's no overall creative vision that you get in a television series when you don't have a showrunner. So basically, Marvel's like, hey, there are some great ideas from your standard television series making process that we should roll into our Marvel method. And we need to hire showrunners. We need to film pilots. We need to come up with a show Bible. All things that are essential to quality television making outside of Marvel Studios, which seems like a no-brainer, right?
I mean, I'm surprised they weren't doing that to begin with. Not necessarily the pilot thing, but like the show Bible. Like, shouldn't that be the MCU Bible? They have to have one.
I'm sure they do, but they're introducing new characters that have very little to do with the greater MCU that aren't playing into that larger universe. Shows such as Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Echo. So these shows can have their own Bible that has very little to do with the larger MCU, but these documents need to exist that really steer the direction of the show for the creatives producing it.
Yeah, a lot of these shows, because they don't really lead into anything else, have really lost the must-see factor that the films had, during the Infinity Saga that we had, because each movie dealt with an Infinity Stone or led in some way to Infinity War and Endgame. It'll be nice to see Marvel return to something like that for this multiverse saga.
Yeah, we've said it before on the show, Marvel needs to get back their cohesion that they once had, because everything feels very disparate right now. And I think this new process that they're going to adapt will not only result in a more cohesive universe, but just better television shows overall. So RIP Daredevil coming out in 2024, but here's looking to, 2025, maybe 2026, whenever it comes out. I do think that there's this unfortunate burden that is upon the show in that because it's coming out in Disney Plus and it doesn't have the freedom of being on Netflix, it has an uphill battle when it comes to the inevitable comparisons that will be made to the Netflix show.
Maybe not. If they were just smart and hired the old writers from the Netflix show, then this whole situation would be moot. It's so obvious. Just do that.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's the only way they're going to avoid headlines like, sure, Daredevil Born Again was good, but it wasn't as good as the Netflix show, because that very likely could be the case. I kind of hope they'd bring the showrunner back from season 1, Stephen S. DeKnight, because I just think he did a fantastic job and basically setting up the whole vibe of what the show would be. But we'll see what happens. Speaking of anticipated television shows, that brings us to our question of the week.
What upcoming television series for Marvel or DC are you most looking forward to, and why?
Record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Your message could be up to 30 seconds long, and don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and award that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to Instagram and our email newsletter. Be sure to answer before October 21st. But I think that does it for all the news for this episode, so let's go ahead and get into our main event. As part of Spooktober, we're going to find out who would win in a fight between the interdimensional demons of Trigon and Dormammu. All right, Trigon versus Dormammu. These guys are the big badass demons of the respective universes. You know, like Marvel has some pretty badass demons like Mephisto, Satanish, Lucifer, and Asmodeus, and things like that. But Dormammu eclipses them all. He's not a Hell Lord like them, but he is a Class 3 demon who is in charge of an entire dimension known as the Dark Dimension, also known as the Realm of Darkness.
Wait, what? The Dark Dimension? That's fucking Trigon's domain, bro. That domain and multiple other dimensions that he's conquered, because he is DC's premier demon lord, like no contest.
Well, that makes me feel bad for DC, because Trigon is super lame, and he's going to get his demon ass beat by Dormammu, who is so freaking powerful. You're effed. This is going to be hilarious.
Dude, you think Dormammu is powerful? Not with a name like Dormammu. Like Trigon, yeah, it's a powerful, strong name. Fucking Dormammu? You're giving me shit about Andrew Bennett. What the hell is a Dormammu?
What the hell is a Trigon? Trigon sounds like some kind of like tech company. Like they manufacture printers or something. Like, buy your next Trigon printer.
Yeah, like a really badass printer, right? Whereas fucking Dormammu is like a company that makes muumuus or something like that, you know?
What?
It's like, yeah, you can't fit in your clothes? Buy a Dormammu.
Oh my god. I don't know how you're going to talk that shit about the Lord of Darkness, but you'll pay the price. You're going to pay the price for it.
We'll see. We'll see. To explain the methodology behind our duels, let's go to our sentient duel simulator, Alfred Jarvis 9000. AJ9K, tell our listeners how you go about determining a winner in our duel matchups.
Yes, of course, sir. The way I determine a winner between the contestants is by running 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations using the characters' statistics. A Monte Carlo simulation is a probabilistic model used to determine outcomes through random sampling. In this case, I randomize the statistics along a normal distribution as a way to simulate the many variables that can occur during battle. The stat parameters are based on the official Marvel power grid, from which the DC characters' statistics are extrapolated. Additional stat categories are included such as range, damage potential, versatility, and perception in order to create a more detailed and accurate simulation. The results of the 1,000 simulations provide a percentage of wins for each character. The contestant with the higher percentage is declared the victor, as they have a higher probability to win any given battle. In an equitable pairing, neither character should win 100% of the matches. The comic book stories have shown that there's even a way for Batman to defeat Superman, so the confidence rate of my method falls in line with the precedents that have been established in the source material. My mathematical simulations are without subjectivity or bias. Feats are not the sole consideration, nor are fan votes tabulated for determination of the winner.
Thanks, AJ9K. Before we run the simulations, though, we like to break down each character's histories and abilities before improvising a scenario on how we imagine one of the 1,000 simulations would play out beat for beat. And I believe it is my turn to go first with the Marvel character's backstory, so let me go ahead and tell you all about Dormammu, aka the Lord of Darkness, the Dread One, the God Tyrant, the Eater of Souls, the Ass Kicker of Trigon. Dormammu came into existence thousands, if not millions of years ago in the realm of the Faltines, an ancient race of immensely powerful extra-dimensional beings of pure magical energy. After several millennia of existence, Dormammu and his sister Umar began to pull matter into themselves, taking on physical form, a practice forbidden to the Faltine race. After slaying their father, Dormammu and Umar were exiled from their native realm and cast out into the multiverse. They explored numerous dimensions, absorbing more matter into themselves, until they settled upon and conquered the realm of darkness, also known as the Dark Dimension. The realm contained portals into other universes, which Dormammu and Umar used to absorb other dimensions into their new domain. After a time, Dormammu discovered a portal into the realm of the Mindless Ones, which were indestructible magic beings of destruction. The Mindless Ones invaded the realm of darkness through the portal, but Dormammu and Umar were able to constrain and imprison them, releasing them only at their own bidding. Not long after, Dormammu banished Umar herself to a pocket dimension so that he could reign in the realm of darkness solely and unopposed, though he did take Umar's daughter Clea into his service. As the god tyrant of the realm of darkness, he waged wars against other realms, conquering them and growing his dominion, and thousands of years ago, he turned his attention to Earth's dimension. He helped create the hellish demon lord Satanish to spread darkness and prepare his invasion, though Dormammu's plot was thwarted by Agamotto, the first sorcerer supreme, who used his powerful eye amulet and the mysterious Staff of One to repel him. Hundreds of years ago, Dormammu tried his hand at Earth again, causing London's Great Fire of 1666 and using the life force of its victims to link the realm of darkness to Earth via Stonehenge. He was stopped by a young sorcerer at the time named Yao, who would go on to become Earth's new sorcerer supreme called the Ancient One, and become one of Dormammu's greatest foes across the multiverse. In the modern day, Dormammu manipulated one of the Ancient One's disciples, a sorcerer named Baron Mordo, into serving him and slowly weakening the Ancient One over time. Feeling too weak to ward off an invasion by Dormammu, the Ancient One sent his newest apprentice, the hero Doctor Strange, into the realm of darkness to stop the Dark Lord's evil plans. Dormammu sent challenge after challenge at Doctor Strange, though the sorcerer was able to overcome them all. And as the God Tyrant drew upon the power of the Dark Realm, the dimensional barriers within began to weaken, including the barrier that contained the Mindless Ones. While Doctor Strange was not able to beat Dormammu, he did help the Dark Lord seal the Mindless Ones back into their confinement, resulting in the God Tyrant owing him a debt. Strange made Dormammu vow never to threaten Earth's dimension again, resulting in the Dark Lord swearing vengeance against the hero, and thereafter trying tirelessly to find a loophole to his bargain. You can learn more about Doctor Strange in his duel episode against Dr. Fate. Dormammu found a workaround by manipulating or allying with other villains to kill Doctor Strange and negate their pact. He partnered with Baron Mordo, the Netherworld sorcerer Taza, Loki, Doctor Doom, and others who were all defeated, until eventually Dormammu possessed Doctor Strange himself, though the hero's allies, the Defenders, were able to break him of the spell. You can learn more about the Defenders in our Suicide Squad vs. Defenders duel episode. Later on, Dormammu unleashed the Mindless Ones on Earth in a ploy to trap Doctor Strange and his niece Clea when they entered the realm of darkness. Although Strange and Clea were able to free themselves, Dormammu had absorbed the power of his sister Umar into himself, becoming so powerful that he realized that Earth's dimension was not worth his time after all. Instead, he found it more sporting to go to war with the Lords of Hell themselves, including Mephisto, whom you can learn more about in our Sandman vs. Mephisto duel, and Hellstorm, who we haven't done a duel with but will for sure eventually. Allying himself with Satanish, whom Dormammu created all those years ago, Dormammu usurped 2/5 of the Hellscape before facing against a stand of the United Forces of Hell, led by the superheroine Hellcat, whom you can learn more about in her duel against Catwoman. Defeated, Dormammu decided somehow that Earth was again worth the taking, and he influenced a villain called the Hood, eventually corrupting him enough to possess him and enter Earth's realm, though he was eventually exorcised by the combined efforts of Doctor Strange, Hellstorm, and Brother Voodoo, whom you can learn more about in his duel against John Constantine. Inspired by the zombie virus overtaking other dimensions, Dormammu created a mindless plague that infected Earth, transforming numerous civilians and heroes into mindless ones. The international law enforcement agency S.H.I.E.L.D. then formed a new supernatural fighting force called the Howling Commandos, composed of Zombie, the Living Mummy, Frankenstein's monster, and the creature Man-Thing, whom you can learn more about in his duel against Swamp Thing. Together with the Absorbing Man, who absorbed part of the Dark Dimension itself, the team was able to cure those infected with the mindless plague. Recently, Ego the Living Planet was manipulated into joining a cult called the Brethren of the Forgotten Flame, which prompted him to become the host of Dormammu, now reborn in Earth's dimension. The Dark Lord conjured a horde of mindless ones to conquer the 5 planets of Hala, Skrullos, Spartax, Eri, and Chitauri Prime to use them in a galaxy-spanning pentagram through which he could summon the entire realm of darkness. It took the Guardians of the Galaxy led by Dr. Doom to stop him, where Dr. Doom used a spell to siphon some of Dormammu's power and conduct it into a magic metal known as Mysterium, which they used as a giant deity-stopping bullet. The Guardians fired it at Dormammu, banishing him back to the Dark Dimension. And that's his backstory. Powers-wise, Dormammu was a member of the Faltine, energy deities of intensely powerful magic, whose might rivals that of the Celestials, entities such as Galactus, and elder gods such as Zeus or Odin. His physical form is but an armor shell for his sun-like embodiment, through which he commands an eternal supply of mystic energy that can ravage a cosmos. Though he is considered a Class 3 demon, he is more powerful than any of the Lords of Hell, such as Mephisto or Satanish, whom he created. Dormammu is virtually indestructible and immortal. If somehow his intangible raw energy form is destroyed, it's replenished over time, assisted by those who worship him throughout the multiverse. He's capable of lifting well over 100 tons. He can travel the multiverse and the time stream at will. He can alter his size. He can conjure, transform, control, and absorb matter and energy. He can summon demons or mindless ones to fight on his behalf. He has vast psionic powers, including telekinesis and telepathy. He can warp reality. He can create and resurrect life. He can remove and bestow powers on others. Basically, it would have been easier to put together a list of what Dormammu can't do. He has an inconceivably massive intellect, though he is not immune to the fault of pride, and he actually does have some training in an extra-dimensional fighting style. He is slightly weaker in dimensions he has not conquered outside of his dark realm, such as the Earth's dimension. And there you go.
Oh, what? I'm sorry, I fell asleep. Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I got bored by how weak and lame Dormammu is. He ain't shit compared to Trigon.
No, you're right. He ain't shit. He's whatever the opposite of shit is. You are correct. He's way better than Trigon.
Wait, I mean he is shit compared to Trigon. Let me tell you about his backstory. Hundreds of years ago, a sect of powerful pacifist humans, led by a woman named Azar, left the earthly plane and all its suffering, settling in an interdimensional land known as Azarath. To ensure that Azarath would remain a place of peace and goodness, the humans exorcised all evil from them and cast it through the great door in the Temple of Azarath, where its energy drifted and coalesced in the interdimensional ether. This evil energy was eventually channeled into an unknown dimension by a dying alien race that worshipped evil, and who used it to impregnate a woman from their order. The offspring was Trigon, a powerful demon entity that slaughtered his mother and the aliens who summoned him before taking over and eventually destroying his planet. From there, Trigon traveled across the universe, conquering worlds and eventually the entire dimension, spreading his evil across the multiverse and siring children of his own in an effort to expand his legacy and hate. None of his children, all sons, ever survived, however, as Trigon either had to kill them when they inevitably rebelled and tried to usurp his power, or they were killed as infants by their mothers in an effort to stop the spread of Trigon's power. Several decades ago, in the main DC universe, a young runaway named Angela Roth fell in with a satanic cult, who accidentally summoned Trigon during one of their rituals. Trigon disguised himself as an angelic being and took Angela as his bride, impregnating her before destroying the cult and abandoning Angela. Desperate and alone, Angela was found and taken in by the priests of Azarath, who Trigon had manipulated into finding and caring for Angela and his unborn child. Angela was renamed Arella, and though many in Azarath were not pleased at the idea of caring for Trigon's bride, they came to realize that if the child was raised on Earth, it would become corrupted and pose a threat to the entire universe of their old homeworld. Arella eventually gave birth to Trigon's first daughter, Raven, who you can learn more about in our Raven vs. Phoenix duel. When a citizen of Azarath named Juris felt threatened by Raven's existence, he attempted to hurl the infant Raven through the Great Door into the Nether. But upon opening the door, Juris came face to face with Trigon, who disintegrated Juris with fiery energy just before the door shut. The infant Raven herself remained unharmed by Trigon's flames, and when she grew to a teenager, feeling her father's evil influence over her, she opened the Great Door herself and gazed for the first time upon the dangerous evil presence of Trigon, causing her to flee Azarath to Earth in an effort to find beings willing and capable of stopping her father, ultimately forming a new incarnation of the Teen Titans, who you can learn more about in our Titans vs. X-Men Team Duel episode. With Raven on Earth, Trigon was eventually able to amass enough power to breach DC's main dimension, where he began destroying the planet, beginning with Manhattan. Though Raven and the Teen Titans fought against her father, they proved no match for Trigon, and Raven fled to Azarath where her power would be the strongest, yet unknowingly providing a path for Trigon to find the peaceful place, which is what he wanted all along. When Trigon entered the Temple of Azarath, Raven made a pact with him in which she would serve him in his realm in exchange for leaving Earth and Azarath alone. Trigon agreed, and brought Raven to his hellish interdimensional domain that consisted of entire worlds that lived in perpetual terror of Trigon's wrath. After Trigon destroyed a random planet known as Xynthia to show Raven the futility of trying to save or help anyone, Raven helped the Teen Titans and her mother Arella enter Trigon's domain where, with their combined efforts, they were able to open a portal to a dimensional void and trap Trigon there, with Arella staying behind to guard the gateway. After years of gathering his power, Trigon was able to break free of his prison and laid siege to Azarath alongside his demonic horde, slaying all of its inhabitants except for his daughter Raven, whom he corrupted completely and who joined him in his conquest of Earth. After conquering the planet, Trigon made the Titan's Tower his throne, upon which he entered a state of meditation to regain strength as his power continued to corrupt the planet. During this time, the corrupted Raven was healed by a ring that contained the pure souls of everyone killed in Azarath, imbuing her with a white light that allowed her to corrupt Trigon's own evil soul and seemingly destroy him. Trigon's soul merely returned to his personal domain, however, where he gathered his power over time and continued to influence outside dimensions. 6 of his sons, however, were revealed to have survived and grown by this point into the deadly sins of man. As their power grew, Trigon's grew weaker, and after his sons captured Raven in order to open a portal to his realm, Trigon's son siphoned the last of his power, completely destroying him, only for Trigon's sons to fall to Raven and the Titans soon after. In post-Flashpoint continuity, Trigon's origin was retconned so that he was once the evil ruler of an unknown planet in the multiverse who was visited by a trinity of beings known as the Divine. The Divine possessed an object known as the Heart of Darkness that they had used on other planets and galaxies to absorb and eradicate the concept of evil. The Heart of Darkness had no effect on Trigon, however, who, upon consuming the object, absorbed the evil and power of nearly 100 galaxies, making him the most powerful being in that universe, before murdering and skinning the Divine, who were then revealed to be his parents. After conquering numerous dimensions, Trigon impregnated a woman from Earth named Arella, who gave birth to Trigon's first daughter, Raven, and the two of them hid from Trigon for years in the peaceful dimension of Azarath. Eventually, Trigon descended into Hell and proclaimed himself among its hierarchy of rulership, gaining control of a pocket dimension within it known as the Underrealm, or the Dark Dimension, from which he continues his attempts to corrupt Raven and destroy her world. Powers-wise, Trigon is one of the most powerful beings in existence, capable of destroying entire planets and conquering whole dimensions. His strength, speed, and durability are near unmatched in the DC universe, and he has a cosmic awareness and telepathic ability that essentially grants him omniscience and the capability of possessing or mind-controlling nearly anyone. He's capable of casting powerful illusions and altering his physical form, allowing him to grow to colossal proportions. He possesses telekinesis, as well as the ability to transmute matter and alter reality, allowing him to distort space-time or even raise the dead. He can emit eldritch and hellfire energy blasts capable of destroying planets, and he can generate portals to nearly any location in any dimension. He can fly and can regenerate from any injury, including the complete annihilation of his body over time. He's a master of the dark arts and occulticism, and though the more power he uses, the more time he needs to regain his strength, he is made more powerful in the presence of evil, but also weakened by goodness, purity, and holiness. And that's Trigon.
Oh, he sounds pretty powerful, but it's interesting how his greatest enemies are a bunch of teenagers.
Oh, as opposed to Hellcat?
Dormammu, his greatest enemy is the freaking Sorcerer Supreme. Yeah, this Trigon guy doesn't stand a chance.
Yeah, the Teen Titans could totally kick the shit out of the Sorcerer Supreme. Raven alone could kick the shit out of the Sorcerer Supreme.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard come out of your mouth.
What?
You said a lot of dumb things in the course of this podcast.
Raven versus Doctor Strange. Let's run the stats, bro. Come at me. Roll up.
Oh, I'll take that.
Roll up.
Roll up on me.
No, we'll do that later. Let's get on to Trigon versus Dormammu. Now that we've got those characters' histories and abilities out of the way, let's speculate on how one of the 1,000 simulated matches will go. The winner is determined by simulations, not this speculation, but it's fun to imagine how this fight could play out. Alfred Jarvis 9000, what are the rules of our speculation?
Well, I should say there are no rules, other than the characters have no prior knowledge of the other going into the fight. All they are aware of starting out is that the other character is a threat that needs to be eliminated. For the speculation, the contestants will begin approximately 50 meters apart in a nondescript environment that will have no bearing on the match itself, as no environmental statistics are considered in my simulations. The contestants must earn victory on their own merit.
All right, then let's get into it. Trigon and Dormammu meet on the battlefield. Who goes first?
I mean, I'm going to say Trigon goes first because he's more badass and evil.
What now? Dormammu is going to look across the battlefield into Trigon's soul, and he's just going to see a lesser evil than himself.
What?
Because he's the true Lord of Darkness, okay? Dormammu, he's going to grow into the size of a goddamn mountain, and he's going to conjure the flaming sword of the Faltine, just this massive blade.
Okay, I mean, well, he just gets blasted with a massive wave of evil eldritch energy that Trigon spews from his mouth as he also grows to the size of a mountain.
Okay, but Dormammu is just going to absorb that dark energy into his sword, and then he's going to raise his blade into the sky, which blots out the sun and turns it into this black ball of mystic energy. And then Dormammu is going to point his sword at Trigon, which is going to shrink the blackened sun and hurl it right into Trigon. That's
Damn.
Right. He just threw the sun.
I mean, that's fine. As the sun is coming at Trigon, he's just going to use his claws to rip open a portal in the fabric of reality to another dimension, so that darkened sun is going to collide with a planet of innocence instead and just destroy it.
So Dormammu likes that.
Well, so does Trigon, because Trigon's going to absorb the negative emotions from all the millions of life forms from the planet that just died, and he's going to channel that energy into like a massive snake, like a stone snake that he conjures from the ground beneath them that wraps around Dormammu and crushes his physical form.
Well, Dormammu doesn't really have a physical form. You know, he's an energy being.
What?
And he could just easily escape this snake. But instead of escaping it, Dormammu's going to transform this stone snake into like a giant, heavy iron chain that Dormammu's just going to send out. It's going to wrap around Trigon and trap him in a binding spell. Okay? And with Trigon trapped, Dormammu's just going to yank Trigon toward him and just cleave him right in half down the middle with his giant flaming sword.
Yeah, except that Trigon's just going to stop the blade with his telekinesis. And he's going to grow these massive dragon wings from his back that just shatter that magic chain that was around him. And with Dormammu in close proximity, Trigon's going to use his death stare with like his extra eyes. You know how he has like 6 eyes? Well, that stare is going to magically turn Dormammu's flaming head into ice. And that's going to spread across his whole body, just freezing him with the coldness of death. At which point, Trigon just shatters Dormammu's body with a Spartan kick.
Okay. Dormammu's body is ice, and it's in pieces on the ground. But all of a sudden, these ice chunks turn bright red, and they melt, joining together into like this lake of blood. And from the lake crawls this army of giant demon skeletons that surround Trigon and just freaking tear him to pieces.
Dang. Okay, well, I mean, any demon skeletons that are touching Trigon, all of a sudden, each of them gains 6 glowing eyes. Because that's right, they're possessed by Trigon now. So they turn around and actually defend Trigon against the other oncoming skeletons. But also, like Trigon, he's going to conjure this barbaric black armor and weaponry for his skeleton crew. So they just whoop the other skeletons' asses.
Okay. Except for the last skeleton, because the last remaining skeleton's skull is going to suddenly burst into flames and transform into Dormammu. And Dormammu's fiery head just keeps growing and growing until it just swallows Trigon whole. And then Trigon finds himself in the realm of darkness, in the dark dimension, where everything's like really trippy.
Oh, Trigon's own dimension. Yeah, that's perfect.
No. Dormammu's dark dimension, where Dormammu's all powerful, and he's gonna unleash the mindless ones, who are indestructible and relentless, stone like Cyclops. What's the plural of Cyclops?
Cyclopsi.
I think it's Cyclopes, actually.
Sure.
Anyway, they only have one purpose: to destroy everything, and they're gonna destroy Trigon, who, no matter how powerful he is, he's not gonna be able to stop them.
I mean, okay, sure. Trigon isn't able to destroy them, but he can banish them with a swirling portal to his dark dimension, where they're just going to wreak havoc and demolish souls, and that's going to empower Trigon further, like enough to just shatter Dormammu's entire dimension, which is going to fold up into this small black gemstone that Trigon just holds in his hand with like a little Dormammu screaming inside of it. And with a laugh, Trigon's just gonna crush that gemstone to dust in his fist. Match over. Trigon just crushed Dormammu's entire dark dimension.
Except you would think that crushing the black gem would just unleash Dormammu, which is what happens. You fall!
What?
And Trigon's hand that crushed the gemstone, it's gonna turn into ash and just spreads all across the rest of him as he just gets scattered to the interdimensional void or wherever they are. And Dormammu's just gonna laugh as only his fiery eyes and smile remain. That's match over.
Nah. I'm gonna say that's not how the magic works. Like, Dormammu was friggin' crushed.
That's how Trigon wanted the magic to work, but, he's just a subpar magician, so.
Oh my gosh.
There you go. We'll go ahead and leave the match there. Either Trigon collapses Dormammu and his entire dark dimension into a gemstone that he crushes and destroys, or the very act of crushing it itself causes Trigon to die due to Dormammu's superior magic. We'll go ahead and see which of these scenarios happens by plugging in these character stats, running them in 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations, and coming back with a winner.
AJ9K, hit it.
Inputting data, running calculations, processing results. Simulations complete.
All right, this matchup, these guys are freaking off the charts on a lot of the criteria that we judge standard characters by. Usually your most powerful characters are able to destroy a city or a planet, but these guys can destroy entire universes and realities and have done so on multiple occasions. So, it's difficult to quantify, but overall we did say that the characters are actually pretty on par with each other.
Yeah, they're evenly matched in every stat category, which was surprising to me, honestly. I didn't think they were going to be so evenly matched, but then again, I didn't know much about Dormammu.
I thought at least Dormammu had Trigon in the fighting skill department, but we've seen Trigon throw down with some impressive weapons of his own, you know?
And I was concerned that Dormammu was going to take the intelligence category, considering the original version of Trigon was only hundreds of years old compared to the millions of years that Dormammu has lived. But it turns out in the New 52 retcon, Trigon is basically as old as time itself.
Even though we all know that the New 52 is no longer a thing, so I don't know why we went with that origin.
I don't know, some things have stuck around from it.
I think Jonathan just likes to pick and choose the reality that he's pulling from whenever it suits him with a better stat number.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Because we all know that DC stands for damn cheaters.
Actually, it stands for damn good continuity. The damn and good are hyphenated, so it's like one word.
Jonathan, given that all the stats for Dormammu and Trigon were even, including speed, evasiveness, durability, strength, damage, fighting, range, intellect, perception, and versatility, who do you think's going to actually win this coin toss?
Please let it be Trigon. Please let it be Trigon.
Who are you praying to?
The gods of probability?
Your gods aren't going to help you here.
Jeez.
These are the Dark Lords.
Oh, man. I do have to say, though, that Instagram thinks that Trigon is going to win because, fittingly, 66% of our Instagram followers who voted chose him as the winner. And I'd like to think it's 66.6%.
I think we just have too many Instagram followers who are DC fans. If you're a Marvel fan and you're on Instagram, be sure to follow us.
I just think it's because Trigon looks a lot cooler than Dormammu. Because Dormammu just looks like a fucking matchstick as compared to Trigon, who looks like a legit devil.
Well, let's see who won between the matchstick and the devil. AJ9K, the results, please.
Here you are, sir.
All right, the winner between Dormammu and Trigon is Dormammu.
Fucking dumb.
That's right. It was close, though, obviously, because it was a coin toss. Dormammu, out of 1,000 matches, won 507, whereas Trigon only won 493. So it was 50.7% to 49.3%. Dormammu won 14 more matches out of 1,000.
I mean, I feel like even if Trigon came out ahead in these particular simulations, I would still feel underwhelmed. Like, I feel like we did not get an answer as to who would really win, because in reality, it's unknowable. They're essentially the same character.
It is knowable. Math knows. We ran the simulations. Dormammu won.
Okay, run them again.
Oh, we only run them once. What are you talking about?
I'll freaking do it. I'll run them again. Dang it! Run them again. Dang it! Run them again. What is going on? Oh, here we go. Trigon wins 501 matches. Boom.
All right, then we'll consider the two a wash, and then we'll say that Dormammu won 506 matches. Whatever. Dormammu comes out on top, and Trigon be bygones.
Yeah, that was
Does that
stupid.
make sense? I don't know if that made sense.
No, it didn't. That does it for this duel. Let us know what you thought about the stupid results by writing to us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Instagram or X. You can find links to all of our accounts by checking out our show notes or visiting our website at dynamicduel.com.
And on our site, you can also find a link to our Patreon page where you can join our Dynamic 2.0 tier and chat with us and fellow listeners, our Fantastic 4 tier, which gets you bonus content each month, our X-Force tier that makes you an executive producer of this podcast, or our newest tier that lets you join our Dynamite Podcast Network. If you can't join Patreon, you can still support the show by signing up for our e-newsletter, also at dynamicduel.com, so you'll never miss an episode.
Or you could also rate the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or on our website.
In our next episode, we're going to get good friend of the show and executive producer John Starosky on as a guest, and we're going to review and discuss the 2011 film Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance,
which I have not seen yet. I will be watching it this week for the first time.
But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson,
John Starosky,
Zachary Hepburn,
Dustyn Balcom,
Miggy Matanguihan,
Brandon Estergard,
Nathaniel Wagner,
Levi Yeaton,
Nick Abanto,
Austin Wesolowski,
AJ Dunkerley,
Scott Camacho,
Adam Speas,
and Andrew Shunk for helping make this podcast possible. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Up, and away.
True believers.
The demon code prevents me from declining the rock-off challenge.